Tell me something that white people say to let you know that they're low-key racist.
Funny you should ask. I have a list. All lives matter. Race baiting. Politically correct. Race card. Reverse racism. Black on black crime. I'm not a racist, but identity politics. Why isn't there a White History Month? Check my last video for that one. Heritage, not hate. Saying to a black person, can I touch your hair? Saying to a black person, you're so articulate. Focusing on the criminal activity of a victim when a black person is killed by a cop, or saying if he just would have complied. And lastly, when issues of race are being discussed, they say, why do you talk about race so much?
Hi, my name's Kylie, and here are the top 5 phrases that white people use to indicate they are a closeted racist. Number 1, I'm not racist, I treat everybody the same. And although they treat everyone the same, they are the people who often spew the most racist and hateful stereotypes in private. Number 2, I just care about the economy. No, you only care about preventing black, brown, queer, or disabled people from accessing healthcare. And then you go home to your white family and your white kids and you start saying slurs and convincing your kids why they shouldn't marry a person of color. Number 3, I don't like identity politics. Oh, you mean when it's not about you? Because whiteness is already centered in every other aspect. So the one time it's not, you get mad. Number 4, why does everything have to be about race? Because everything is about race. Because quite literally anything that you can think of in America is rooted in race. Tipping culture, the naming of streets, gentrification. And number 5, I just think people should follow the law. You mean the law that is inherently racist and that criminalizes blackness or that has banned indigenous practices and celebrations? Right.
Why is everything about race? Or why do you make everything about race? I'm okay with it as long as they came here legally. Doesn't matter if you're polka dot, green, purple, I love everyone the same. I'm colorblind. I teach my kids not to see color. I'm not racist. Holds up a picture of themselves with a black friend or relative. I've never had it easy. In response to a conversation about privilege. What about White History Month? Huh? Why don't we get one of those? Why can you guys say it to each other if I can't say it?
When I hear a white person say black, like not black people, like not black lives, just straight blacks, there's just like I feel like my ancestors being like, hey, don't trust him. Like, bro, when was the last time you heard someone say like, oh, them blacks over there, and it like you couldn't feel like the racist undertones in regards to it? Like when someone's like, oh, why are these blacks killing each other? It's like, why are you saying it like that? Why? Like we're not. Like I'm not a color. I'm a person. I'm a black people. Like they're black people. They are black lives. That is a black man. That is a black woman. That is a black child. That is not a black.
I don't really see color. You know I have black, insert friend or family member here. You don't sound black. You don't act black. I don't really want to get political. You know, if he would have just complied, he shouldn't have resisted. Where's the rest of the video? Don't rush the judgment. Let's wait for all the facts to come out. But what led up to that? Anyone can make it in America if they're just willing to work hard. Everyone has an opportunity in this country. This is the land of opportunity. Make America great again. You need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Love it or leave it. Why don't you go back to your country? You know, you people. What about black on black crime? They're playing the race card again. Why do you have to make everything about race? That happened a long time ago. Why don't you get over it already? What if roles were reversed and a white person said that? That's reverse racism. How come it's okay for you to use the word and not us? Blue lives matter. All lives matter. I'm not a racist, but
10 things white people say to black people that are racist, even if they don't realize it. You're so articulate. Why is it racist? It assumes that black people are generally expected to be less intelligent or incapable of speaking well. Complimenting basic communication feels patronizing and reveals a biased, low expectation. I don't see color. Why is it racist? It erases the lived experiences of black people, including the discrimination they faced. Ignoring race doesn't solve racism. It ignores its impact. Can I touch your hair? Your hair is so exotic. Why is it racist? Black hair isn't an exhibit for public curiosity. This fetishization reduces a black person to an object of fascination, ignoring their humanity. Where are you really from? Why is it racist? It implies that black people can't truly be American, are British, etc., and perpetuates the idea that they don't belong. You're pretty for a black person. Why is it racist? It generalizes all black people into a monolithic group based on harmful stereotypes. Black people are individuals, not a hive mind. I have black friends, so I can't be racist. Why is it racist? Having black friends doesn't absolve someone of racism. nor does it mean they understand or even respect black experiences. It often comes off as a deflection rather than addressing someone's problematic behavior. You're not like other black people. Why is it racist? This is a backhanded insult to the broader black community, reinforcing negative stereotypes while positioning the individual as an exception. Slavery was a long time ago. Why don't you just get over it? Why is it racist? It dismisses generational trauma and systemic inequalities rooted in slavery and ongoing racism, showing ignorance of history and its ongoing effects. All lives matter. Why is it racist? It dismisses specific struggles black people face by undermining the purpose of Black Lives Matter to address racial inequality and police brutality. Saying all lives matter ignores these disparities. Comments like these often come from ignorance, not malice, but it doesn't make them less harmful. These statements invalidate, stereotype, and patronize black people and perpetuate the very biases many of them claim they do not have. It's important to listen, learn, and engage with humility to avoid unintentionally reinforcing racism.
Most people who say something hurtful don't think of themselves as bad people. In fact, most of them think they're being nice, they're making conversation, they're giving a compliment, they're asking what they think is a perfectly reasonable question, and the person on the receiving end smiles politely and then goes home and replays that moment for the rest of the evening. Today, we're talking about the phrases that do real damage without anyone realizing it, not because people are evil, but because nobody ever sat them down and explained why these things land the way they do. And that's what this video is for. There's a concept in social psychology called a microaggression. It's defined as a subtle, often unintentional comment or behavior that communicates a negative message to someone from a marginalized group. The key word there is unintentional. These aren't always said with malice. Sometimes they come from genuine curiosity, sometimes from a misplaced compliment, sometimes from a cultural blind spot the speaker didn't even know they had. But here's what research consistently shows. It's not just the intent that matters, it's the impact. And when someone is on the receiving end of these comments day after day, in the workplace, at school, at the dinner table, in the grocery store, the cumulative effect is exhausting in a way that's hard to put into words. So this video isn't about blame, it's about awareness, because you genuinely cannot do better until you know better. After watching this, you will. But before we proceed, all credit goes to the creators of these videos. You'll find all their arts in my description box. But for now, let me play you a few more clips and then I'll be back with my commentary.
Tell me something that white people say to let you know that they're low-key racist.
I'm not racist. If you gotta explain that you're not racist, 9 times out of 10, you're racist.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Black Lives Matter. I just don't support the organization.
I just want them to come here legally. Yeah, right. They're using that as a way to specifically talk about brown people and be all xenophobic and everything without actually saying brown people. Because like 75,000 Canadians migrate to America illegally every year. But they're not talking about white people. They're like, oh, we need to stop those syrup sucking Mounties. No, they talking about South and, Caribbean and stuff.
I don't see color, or I'm colorblind. You're the whitest black person I know. The blacks. Illegals. You're pretty for a black girl, or pretty for a dark girl. I can't be racist. My son or boyfriend is black. MAGA. Speak English. I don't date black girls, but it's just a preference. I have black friends. White privilege doesn't exist. Why can rappers say the N-word, but I can't? MLK would never. You're so pretty. What are you mixed with? My great-great-grandmother was a Cherokee princess. Why don't we have a white entertainment television? Slavery was 400 years ago. Get over it. Shut up and dribble. And lastly, I am the least racist person in this room.
Oh, I'm not racist, but look, my best friend in high school was black. Well, that's because she's black, brown, indigenous, Asian. Well, I let my daughter date a boy in high school who was Mexican. Well, all those rioters are those black and brown people. If they could just get themselves under control. Well, you know who the welfare queens are. Well, it's fine if you date them, but you better not marry them. You come home pregnant by some black kid in your class, you're not my daughter anymore. You see, I was raised by a racist. I've heard them all. And if you say shit like that, you're a racist.
I just feel like everybody makes everything about race nowadays. You know, like at the end of the day, we're all just human, you know, and there's only one race, which is the human race. I don't know, like everybody's so divided nowadays with identity politics. It's like everybody wants to be a victim and everybody wants to like go around and say who has privilege and who doesn't. And I just think it's just so ridiculous. Like anybody can have anything they want in this country if they work hard enough. Like if some people would just pull themselves up by their bootstraps, you're so articulate. You know, like you're just so refreshing. No, I was just saying, like, I've just never met, like, someone like you, you know, like, I just feel like usually when I meet, like, black people, they're just so, like, I don't know, like, loud and, like, you know, but, like, you're not that. Like, you're just, like, so, like, smart, you know what I mean? Like, you're just so, like, soft-spoken and just, like, you make sense. I don't know, I don't really get involved in that kind of stuff. Like, I feel like if you just comply, then nothing bad needs to happen. I think the problem sometimes with some people is that they think they can just challenge authority and never face consequences for that. And to me, I grew up in a community where everybody respected law enforcement. Like, everybody knew their place. Everybody understood that the badge comes with authority and you respect that authority. And I just feel like people don't get that these days. And I mean, that's just what happens sometimes. I don't know. This may be a hot take, but I just feel like sometimes, like when people throw around these terms like privilege and, you know, white, like I don't really see myself as white. Like I feel like I'm just a person at the end of the day. Like you're a person, I'm a person. I don't know why we have to categorize people. Like at the end of the day, I think that's the real racism. Wow, they're so loud. Ooh. God, so loud. Ooh. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like we should probably bring back the days where like the standard for women's beauty was like classic beauty. You know what I mean? Like the all-American, really just like clean, none of that lip filler, none of those like big BBLs and unnatural, misshapen like bodies. I mean, like normal women, you know what I mean?
I literally just had this experience where a white person said something to me that was very subtly racist, so much so that I didn't even realize until the next day. So recently I was on a 4-hour red-eye flight and I was seated next to this older white gentleman, and I kid you not, we talked for like 3.5 hours because 95% of the conversation, like, it was great. We were vibing. But the conversation started because he noticed I was wearing a law school hat, and he was like, oh, did you go to that university for law school? And I was like, no, I went for undergrad, like my sister and my dad went for law school. And after I said that, he was just like, huh. So later on in the conversation, we're talking about education again. He's asked me about my family's background educationally, and he's telling me about his family, and somehow the topic came to student debt. I said something along the lines of the university that I went to wasn't my number one choice, but it made the most sense financially so that I wouldn't leave with debt. I was just saying it's crazy how expensive college is, so much to the point that even if you get into a school that you really want to go to, you probably can't go if you can't afford it. And he responds along the lines of, yeah, well, there's academic scholarships for people who work really hard and are really smart. Like my kids, they worked really hard and were really smart. And if you worked really hard and were really smart, you wouldn't have an issue with money. And I don't know how I didn't pick up on it in the moment. I think it was because I was tired and it was a red eye, but he basically just kept on saying, like, if you were actually smart and deserved to be there and weren't just there because of affirmative action, maybe you'd have a chance at getting a scholarship. What he doesn't know is that my family has a knife next to my name because I cut to the core. I don't even mean to sometimes. And I sure did know how to burst this white man's bubble. So I said, that's awesome for your kids, but the types of schools that I aspired to go to don't give out merit-based scholarships because everybody who gets in is just really smart. I felt really bad for saying that, so I had been replaying the conversation in my head the next day, and that's when it hit me that this man was trying to imply that, like, my family was not actually very smart. We just got to where we were because of affirmative action. And you know what? Even if we did, you had 465 years to get ahead, and you still couldn't make it to where we are. That's a personal problem. And that's on subliminal racism.
Oh my God, can I touch your hair? How do y'all get your hair like that? I voted for Obama twice. Oh my God, I love Kanye West. You play football? I bet you play football. You must play basketball. So, like, is it true what they say? So I was talking to this black guy. I'm sorry, is it okay if I say black? You know, like, is it true? I just don't want to offend you. Should I say people of color? You know, I just heard that people like you have a really big, hey, hashtag BLM, man. I just feel like if I can't say the N-word, then why do you guys get to say it? So, like, as a whole, like, I just can't date black people, not because I'm racist, it's just my preference. Like, you can't get mad at us for saying the N-word, like, we're just listening to your hippity-hop music, like, it slipped out. Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I'm a Democrat. Taylor Swift is better than Beyonce.
I'm a Republican. I mean, my kids are black. My husband's black. I only date black guys. I mean, I voted for Obama. Well, my great-great-grandmother on my father's side was a Negro. I mean, I grew up in the hood. Do you know where you can get me some Coke? Hey, John, is this racist? How is that racist? I think black people are just naturally angrier. Well, you know, if the rent is that cheap. Oh my God, you're my spirit animal. Egypt is not part of Africa. The original Jews were certainly not black. I don't like my ass because all these black guys keep looking at me. So, what about you as black? And finally, wait, you're black. Well, you don't look black.
While sitting on the driver's side of the truck, that's a nice truck. Is it yours? What? Damn, you bought a house? What? That's the neighborhood you live in? Wow. What? And this one is the best. You ain't never been locked up? What?
I can't be racist. I have a black best friend. Black Lives Matter, of course, but I don't like all of them. But I like you. Why can't there be a White History Month? The first person I've met with a white name. Cameron, right? So Cam, not to be racist or anything, but what's up with black chicks wearing weaves? Why don't they use real hair? Do you have any insight for us?
Number one, coming in hot, we have when a white person is telling a story and they mention the race of the person for no reason. That waitress, and then mention how she was Hispanic as if that somehow has something to do with her character. Number two, telling a story about someone from a different race and then doing an accent to make the story come to life. Number three, saying the N-word in rap music or other songs because it's going too fast to skip it. Number four, thinking that their lack of skill when it comes to sports is because they're white and not because, in fact, they are unathletic. Yes, they have actually said this. I've had a white boy tell me he would have gone to the NBA if he was black. Number five, assuming that hearing people in public speaking a different language means they are talking badly about you. Specifically, nail techs or wait staff, because white people think everything is about them.
What's the most racist thing you've ever been told by a white person?
Well, there are many. I don't even know where to start. But I think the one that kind of really just shook me to my core was my father-in-law. So we were having dinner after church, okay? So these are Christian people. And so we're having dinner and we were talking about Scotland. So when Scotland wanted to be free, okay, I should give some background context. I live in Northern Ireland. So I'm sitting around the table, I'm the only black person, and everybody's talking about Scotland, and, you know, they're terrified that if Scotland becomes, you know, independent, you know, people in Northern Ireland half of the people will want to become independent. So I hadn't quite picked up on, the fear that they had about Scotland becoming free. So in my head, I just said, I just thought, well, if Scotland want to be free, like, they should be free. Because, as a black person, as a Kenyan person, like, freedom is everything. And as a woman, right? So I just said, if they want to be free, just let them be free. And my father-in-law got up and he was like, well, black people cannot even rule themselves. So first of all, I did not say anything about being black in this conversation. I just said, if they want to be free, let them be free. But clearly this person, so he said, black people cannot even rule themselves. So then I'm sitting there and remember, it's at a dinner table with many of my in-laws, okay? Nobody says anything. So I'm sitting there waiting for somebody to say something and nobody says anything. Oh, Papa. Oh, did you get... Oh, so nobody says anything. Nobody. So I kind of pluck up a bit of strength and I say, well, because Obama was still president in America. So I looked to him and I said, well, Obama is the president of America. And then I said, there's a whole continent with black people like me ruling themselves. Yeah. And this man had the audacity to say, well, you can't really look at Africa, that's not even a good example because, as soon as the British left, it all fell apart. It all fell apart when the British left.
When people who look like me say things like, not everything has to do with race, or there isn't a racist bone in my body, this is a pretty good indication that they are steeped in their white dominant culture and are relying on their white privilege. And that something in society, perhaps an event, a person, or an idea has disrupted their white privilege and made them to feel uncomfortable. You see, one of the hallmarks of white privilege is that people who look like me have the ability to stop thinking about these issues. We don't necessarily have to think about issues of inequality and racism or institutional and systemic issues in our society because they do not impact us on a daily basis. However, if you are black, brown, or otherwise a person of color or a member of a marginalized group, these are issues that you cannot afford not to think about because they impact you on a daily basis. I grew up in a society where no one ever looked at me as a suspect. I was never treated as someone who had nefarious motivations. People were always willing to help me. And never in my life did I fear that a routine traffic stop would end my life. But this is something that black, brown, people of color, and people who belong to marginalized groups have to deal with on a daily basis. So the next time you hear someone who looks like me say it's not about race, remember, they are exercising their white privilege, and they can afford to do so because society favors the color of their skin.
Let's start with the one that gets delivered as a compliment, and that's precisely what makes it complicated. You are so articulate. Imagine sitting in a meeting, making a well-reasoned point, and afterward, a colleague pulls you aside and says, wow, you're so articulate. On the surface, it sounds positive, but what it's actually communicating is surprise. It's saying, I didn't expect you to speak this well. And that expectation gap, that moment of visible surprise of basic competence, is where the harm lives. Think about it this way. Nobody comments on articulation unless they find it unexpected. If you've never once said you're so articulate to a white colleague after a presentation, but you've said it to a black colleague, that inconsistency is worth examining. It reduces a person's communication ability to something remarkable, when really it's just normal. And for the people hearing it, it signals that the baseline assumptions about them was lower than it should have been. Number 2, this one is almost always said with the purest intentions, and yet it consistently misses the mark. I don't see color, or the variation, I raise my kids not to see color. The person saying this usually means I treat everyone equally regardless of race, and that impulse toward fairness and equality is genuinely good. The problem is in the execution. When you tell someone you don't see their race, you're also saying you don't see a significant part of their lived experience, because race isn't just a visual characteristic. For many people, it shapes how they're treated in job interviews, in hospitals, in stores, in everyday interactions. It shapes their culture, their community, their history, their identity. Saying, I don't see that doesn't make those experiences disappear. It just signals that you're not prepared to acknowledge them. There's actually a term researchers use for this: color evasiveness, and studies show that it can actually increase bias rather than reduce it, because it shuts down the conversations needed to address real inequality. The goal isn't to be colorblind, it is to be color conscious without being color biased. See the person fully, including their background and experience, and choose to treat them with dignity. That's meaningfully different from pretending there's nothing to see. Another one is, can I touch your hair? This might feel like simple curiosity, but it comes up far more often than most people realize, and it's worth understanding why it's uncomfortable. Black hair, its textures, styles, and care is deeply cultural. Locks, braids, twists, natural coils, these aren't just aesthetic choices. They carry history, identity, and meaning. And yet many black people, especially women, report being approached, sometimes by complete strangers, sometimes by co-workers, with requests to touch their hair, or comments about how exotic or different it looks. And here's the thing, nobody should have to field requests to be physically touched simply because someone finds their appearance interesting. Hair is part of your body. Treating it like a novelty, something to be examined or marveled at, reduces the person to an object of curiosity rather than a full human being. The word exotic carries its own weight too. It positions the person as foreign, as other, as somehow outside the norm of what's expected in a shared space. And that othering, even when unintended, is felt. If you're genuinely curious about natural hair, protective styles, or black hair culture, there's a wealth of content online created by people who are happy to share that knowledge. The curiosity itself isn't the problem, the approach is. Something that is said the most is also, where are you from? Pay attention to the word really in this question. That's where everything is. When someone says they're from Chicago or Manchester, and the follow-up is, no, but where are you really from? The implication is clear. The answer they gave isn't believable, that they must be from somewhere more foreign, somewhere that better explains their appearance. What this communicates, without saying it directly, is, you don't fully belong here. Researchers call this othering, the subtle but consistent message that someone falls outside the default of what people in a given space are supposed to look like. And it's something people of color report experiencing repeatedly across countries, across contexts. Genuine curiosity about someone's heritage or cultural background isn't inherently wrong, but there's a meaningful difference between, I'd love to learn more about your background, said in the right context about building rapport, and, but where are you really from? Said to a person you've just met because their face doesn't match your expectation of what local looks like. I have black friends. The classic. This one usually comes up as a defense, as in, I can't be biased, I have black friends. But here's the thing, proximity is not the same as understanding. You can have black friends, black family members, even black children, and still hold biased beliefs. These things are not mutually exclusive. In fact, using a relationship as a shield against accountability tends to do the opposite of what people intend. It makes it seem like you're more focused on defending yourself than on genuinely engaging with the concern being raised. If someone points out that something you said or did was harmful, the most useful response isn't to list your social circle, is to listen, reflect, and consider whether they might have a point. Also, saying slavery was a long time ago, get over it. This one is said with the assumption that history is neatly in the past, that because something happened generations ago, its effects must also be gone. And that's not how systems work. The transatlantic slave trade didn't just end and leave everyone on equal footing. It created economic, social, and political structures that continued long after, through segregation, redlining, discriminatory lending practices, unequal school funding, and mass incarceration, among other things. These aren't ancient history. Redlining, for example, which prevented black families from buying homes in certain neighborhoods and building generational wealth, was practiced well into the latter half of the 20th century. Generational trauma is also a well-documented psychological reality. Telling someone to get over the compounding effects of centuries of systemic exclusion isn't a neutral observation. It's a request to stop talking about something that still has real, measurable consequences today. Lastly, saying all lives matter. This one requires a bit of context to fully understand. When the phrase Black Lives Matter emerged, it was a direct response to a specific problem: the disproportionate number of black people dying during encounters with law enforcement and the lack of accountability that followed. It was saying these lives specifically are not being treated as though they matter. That needs to change. Responding with all lives matter misses the point, intentionally or not. Nobody said only Black Lives Matter. The phrase was about exclusion. It was about drawing attention to a specific gap. An analogy that often helps: if someone's house is on fire and the fire department shows up, you wouldn't tell them to water all the houses equally. You'd focus on the house that's on fire. That's not because the other houses don't matter. It's because one of them has a problem right now that needs addressing. Redirecting from the specific concern to a broad generalization shuts down conversation rather than contributing to it. I hope I've been able to educate you on some of these microaggressions, and if you're someone who didn't know, I hope that now you know better.
Black people get abortion.
Yes. So I looked
Okay,
it up.
why is that, white lady? White lady, why do more black people get abortion? Because abortions are based on what? Lack of access to resources. No, because abortions disproportionately happen to impoverished people. Why are black people more impoverished than white people? Because of white supremacy. So thank you for pointing out that people that have been forced into poverty through systemic racism of the last 200 years are forced to abort their baby more because of the lack of resources to be able to raise a baby, and then you as a white lady use that as your talking point to take the health care away from those same women that are suffering in those same impoverished neighborhoods because you don't want to acknowledge the white supremacy behind it all. Go ahead.
So what do you all think? Have you ever faced any of these microaggressions? Let me know how that made you feel. Otherwise, that's it from me. I also have another video specifically tailored for you, and if you enjoy such kind of content, please click up here and enjoy. Also, consider subscribing, liking and sharing because it helps me grow my channel and helps YouTube recommend this video to a wider audience. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and until the next time, the Joy Report out.